Quick test. Someone throws a ball at you from behind. No warning, no time to set your feet, no time to think. Do you catch it, fumble it, or freeze completely? Now, a harder question. When did you last train for that? We spend hours perfecting our squat depth, our deadlift hinge, our overhead press alignment, and then we get injured picking up a bag of groceries. We slip on wet tiles and can't catch ourselves. We twist to grab something from the back seat and suddenly our back is out for a week. The gym made us strong, but strong in a very specific, very narrow, very predictable set of circumstances. Real life doesn't care about your form cues. Today we're talking about movement intelligence, why the obsession with perfect form is quietly making you fragile, what your nervous system actually needs to become resilient, and how to train for the unpredictable world that you actually live in, not the controlled environment of a gym floor. Let's start with the myth of the perfect form. Perfect form is a useful fiction. It exists for good reason. Learning a fundamental pattern well reduces injury risk when you're new, builds a foundation to load from, and teaches body awareness. That's real and that's valuable. But somewhere along the way, the tool became the goal. Perfect form went from being a starting point to being the entire destination. And that's where it starts to work against you. Here's the problem. Real life is not a controlled environment. You don't get to set up before you slip. You don't get a breath and a brace before your child runs into the road. You don't get to check your spine angle before you lunge sideways to catch something falling off a shelf. The body that can only perform well under ideal conditions is not a strong body, it is a rehearsed one. It is a sports car that handles beautifully on a smooth track and completely falls apart the moment that the road gets unpredictable. And I see this constantly. People who are genuinely impressive in the gym, heavy lifters, aesthetically developed, technically sound in their chosen patterns. But they get hurt doing something completely mundane. Reaching overhead, twisting to look behind them, stepping off a curb at a weird angle. The injury looks bizarre from the outside. From a neuroscience perspective, it makes perfect sense. Their nervous system had only ever been trained for the familiar. The moment it encountered something outside of that map, it had nothing to offer. Strong in a straight line, fragile everywhere else. Now let's talk about movement versus exercise. There is a distinction worth making clearly because it changes everything about how you approach your training. Exercise is about repetition and progression within known patterns. Your reps, your sets, your loads, your splits, your up and down movements. You get better at the things that you practice. You track it, you improve it, you optimize it. That's not useless, but that is incomplete. Movement is about options. It is the ability to solve a physical problem you've never encountered before in real time, with the body you have, in the space that you're in. It's not about performing a pattern perfectly. It is about having enough range, coordination, and nervous system flexibility to adapt. Essentially, it is movement intelligence. Think about children. A 3-year-old has terrible form by any gym standard. Knees caving, spine rounding, completely asymmetrical. And yet, they move with a fluency and confidence that most adults have lost entirely. They fall and roll and get back up and try something different without a second thought. Their nervous system is loaded with options. Adults, over time, narrow that down. We stop playing, we stop exploring, we stick to what we know because the familiar feels safe and the unfamiliar feels awkward and embarrassing. And the nervous system responds accordingly, pruning connections that aren't being used, getting highly efficient at a small library of movements, and increasingly hesitant about everything outside of that. You didn't lose your movement intelligence because you aged. You lost it because you stopped practicing it. Here is what's actually happening when you train the same patterns on repeat. Your nervous system is a prediction machine. It gets efficient at what it encounters most. Repeat a squat 10,000 times and it gets very good at squatting. But that efficiency comes at a cost. The neural pathways for everything else get weaker from disuse. The brain, always optimizing for energy, starts pruning what it doesn't use. It's what you can call neural pruning, and it's why the person who's only ever trained bilateral sagittal plane movements in a gym literally cannot produce clean movements outside of those patterns. They have zero freedom to express themselves freely. And it's not lack of effort, it is lack of exposure. The map doesn't extend there. What the nervous system actually needs to become resilient is variety, novel problems, positions that it hasn't catalogued yet. Confusion, because confusion is the gap between what the brain predicted and what actually happened. And that gap is exactly where adaptation occurs. This is why something like crawling is so much more valuable than it looks. Not because it's functional in some literal sense, but because it forces the brain to coordinate all four limbs in a pattern most adults haven't used in decades. It wakes up spinal stability, shoulder coordination, hip dissociation, and bilateral timing all at the same time, in a way that no barbell or dumbbell can ever replicate. The nervous system has to pay attention, and that attention is where learning lives. Same principle can be applied with something like loaded flexion, so your Jefferson curls or your spinal rounding under control, moving into ranges most coaches tell you to permanently avoid. If you never flex your spine under load, your nervous system has no positive data about spinal flexion. It marks it as a threat, which is why your back goes out doing something as simple as tying your shoelace or picking up your keys from the floor. The position wasn't dangerous, but your nervous system had zero trust in it. The way that you build trust is by actually going there, under control, gradually, repeatedly. Strength through range isn't a slogan, it is how the nervous system learns that a position is safe. So how do we train for the unpredictable? What does this actually look like in practice? Well, it doesn't mean abandoning structure or throwing technique out the window entirely. It means deliberately adding variability and novelty to your training so that your nervous system is constantly being asked to solve new problems rather than repeating the known ones. Some of what I come back to consistently include loading the ranges that people avoid. If your spine never flexes under load, start there. Unloaded rounding, then Jefferson curls with a small weight, build onto that progressively. Same as shoulder mobility. Most people never train shoulder extension, have no capacity to put their arms behind their body. So reaching back, opening the chest, loading end range positions. If it feels foreign, that's exactly why you need to do it. Crawling patterns, so forward, backwards, sideways, in circles, with counterlateral and ipsilateral patterns. The position forces the whole body coordination at low enough intensity that your brain can actually process what is happening rather than just grinding through it. I also love to practice unilateral strength, so single leg work, single arm work, split stance patterns with rotation, because life is asymmetrical and your training should reflect that. Bilateral strength is a foundation, not a whole building. I also want to build balance in real contexts, so walking on rails, walking on narrow beams, unstable surfaces. Not because you need to balance on a beam, but because it forces your ankles, hips, and your brain to coordinate and organize itself dynamically in a way that flat, stable gym floors will never demand. I also like to introduce movement problems. So set a timer for 5 minutes and move from standing to the floor and back up in as many different ways as you can find. No rules, no right or wrong answers, just roll, spiral, twist, connect with the ground, use your hands or don't use your hands. If you feel awkward, you're at the edge. That's the learning zone. And then also add chaos to structure. So finish a session with 5 minutes of improvised movement. Maybe do shadow boxing, maybe change directions randomly, go for a sprint, do some jumps, do some hops, maybe even dance. The goal is not to look any certain way, the goal is to force adaptation. The measure isn't how clean it looks, it is whether your nervous system is encountering something that it hasn't mapped out yet. And that is the best way to build resilience, robustness, and movement intelligence. So go back to the ball test from the beginning. Someone throws something at you with no warning. Would you catch it? If the honest answer is no, or not reliably, that is not a fitness failure. It is a nervous system gap, a vocabulary gap, and like any language, you close it by practicing the words that you don't know, not repeating the ones that you do. The strongest bodies are not the ones that perform perfectly in controlled environments. It is the bodies that can adapt when conditions aren't controlled, which is most of the time. So stop training to be rehearsed and start training to be responsive, resilient, and robust. Get confused on purpose. Load the ranges you've been avoiding. Let your body solve problems that it hasn't even seen before. And that's not chaos for its own sake. That's how you build a body that's actually ready for the world that you live in.